Hey, Irish fans, I'm Mike Sullivan with the Notre Dame Alumni Association. Welcome back to Chalk Talk with Bill and Bill, brought to you by Guinness. Now in its 12th season, Chalk Talk with Bill and Bill features former Irish coaches Bill Reagan and Bill Lewis, who collectively have over 60 years of college and professional coaching experience. For the next 60 minutes, Bill and Bill will give you an in-depth look at the Syracuse offense and defensive attack as the Orange try to spoil another undefeated regular season for the Irish. In addition to that, we'll also look at some keys to the game and take some of your questions for Bill and Bill. So let's get things started with the former Director of Football Operations for the University of Notre Dame, Bill Reagan. Take it away, Bill.
Thanks, Mike. And hi, everybody. Welcome again to Bill and Bill's Chalk Talk. Who would have thought that we'd get to a Game 10 in this pandemic-ridden season? But I tell you what, it feels good to get this far and to do what will be our final in-season presentation for Notre Dame football. We're happy to do so. So we've got Syracuse literally limping into town to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And this game can be tricky. I really don't expect the problems, but we'll cover some things and hope to throw out the gauntlet to the Notre Dame football team so that they feel the challenge is necessary on Saturday. Let's look first at the Syracuse football. Team started in 1889, had their first game, played one of those one-game seasons back in 1889. Not too long after that, 1959, well, I guess it's half a century, won a national championship. And so we have here is a team that started a long time ago, has a real proud heritage and a sense of pride about their football team on campus. The Orange are fifth among FBS schools in the number of games played. So they've been around, they've been playing this game. They are over 500 in terms of all-time games. Collegiate coaches for Syracuse, they have 8 in the Hall of Fame, in the College Football Hall of Fame. That's one more than Notre Dame has. However, I have to point out that coaches Howard Jones, Tad Jones, Bill Hollenbach, and Charles Munn all had only 1 or 2 years as the head football coach. On the other hand, Buck O'Neill, Vic Hansen, Ben Schwartzwalder, and Dick McPherson served for 50 years as the head coach, not each, but a cumulative 50 years as the head coach, with Ben Schwartzwalder being the leader there and having been the head coach for 25 years and created a lot of success. And that's why these guys are in the Hall of Fame. The other coaches, Jones and Hollenbach and Munn, really got their success at other schools. Notable football alumni, and they have a few. Jim Brown, maybe the greatest football player of all time. Ernie Davis, who was the first African-American Heisman winner, and to this day, Syracuse's only Heisman Trophy winner. Floyd Little. Those first 3 guys all wore the number 44, and 44 is a famous Syracuse football number, which is now retired, and but is retired on the behalf of as many as 25 former Syracuse players. Also have Larry Zonka, John Mackey, Joe Morris, the great New York Giant, Don McPherson. And you might say, Don McPherson, there was a Dick McPherson who was a coach. Actually, Don McPherson played for Dick McPherson, but there's no relation at all. The great Donovan McNabb, Dwight Freeney, and Art Monk. These are some of the guys who are very popular among football alumni at Syracuse. Syracuse this Saturday will start the most freshmen in program history. They're slated to start 6. Now, that's a couple redshirt freshmen as well. But in addition to that, 71% are either first-year or second-year players on the 2-deep depth chart. So let's look at the Irish and the Orange over the years. They've only played 9 times, so this will be the 10th game. And I really think of Syracuse as a more frequent competitor of Notre Dame's than that. But the first game was in 1914. Notre Dame leads the series 6-3. The most recent game being in 2018 with a Notre Dame 36-3 victory in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. The series dates back to 1914. That precludes Newt Rockne. Actually, Newt Rockne was an assistant coach on that team, and Jess Harper was the head coach. But 6 of the previous 9 meetings have come since 2003. So really, most of the games versus Syracuse have been recently. The last time either team faced an opponent this late in the season was December 6, 2003, when Syracuse and Notre Dame played each other. The first and last meetings at Notre Dame Stadium have been memorable, really memorable games. Some on the good side, some on the not so good side. So the last time Syracuse came to South Bend, the Orange at that time also limped into the stadium at 2-8 record. Notre Dame was 6-4 under Charlie Weiss, having played a tough schedule up to that point. But the son of Adrian Dantley, Cameron Dantley, who was a backup quarterback for Syracuse that year, threw an 11-yard touchdown pass within the last minute. And Syracuse won the game 24-23 on Senior Day. So we are versus Syracuse once again on Senior Day. And let's hope the outcome's a little different than that year. Maurice Crum, who was the captain of the football team in 2008, said that it was the worst loss of his career. And I think really one of the most embarrassing losses in Notre Dame football history. Well, let's look at the first time Syracuse came to Notre Dame Stadium. Roles were kind of reversed. Now, this is the game program. And just as a sidebar, Joe Bolin is featured on the cover here. And for those of you who don't know who Joe Bolin was, he was a Notre Dame player. Was on the 1924 Rose Bowl team, national championship team under Newt Rockne, and went on to be a head coach in small college football at St. Thomas in Minnesota. Came back to Notre Dame as an assistant football coach. And then in 1940, retiring from football, established the Irish Football Network, where he was the primary announcer for Notre Dame football for many, many years. Passed away in 1960, and so they honored him on the program versus Syracuse in 1961. But looking at the game itself, the Orange first trip to South Bend, that was not only memorable, but controversial, historical, we could say. And here's some of what went on that day. So Syracuse came into the game 6-2, ranked number 10 in the nation. They're led by Ernie Davis, the great Ernie Davis, and tight end John Mackey. 5,000 Syracuse fans flew to South Bend for the game. Now, remember, this is 1961, so this is a rather large commitment. They are excited because it's their first trip to South Bend to take on Notre Dame, and it's the first time they're playing Notre Dame since 1914. So they're excited. There are Orange Bowl people on hand. They're ready to invite Syracuse to the Orange Bowl should they win the game, and they were expected to win this game because Notre Dame was 4-3, kind of struggling through a typical Joe Kuharich year. Not a bad team. They're up and down, had some good wins, and then struggled to win games. Lost some games you thought they would win. So they're 4-3 on the year. So the game is really going Notre Dame's way early on. Going into the fourth quarter, Notre Dame's winning 14-0, but Syracuse mounts a comeback. I think they finally get it together and say, hey, we're the better team here. And so they come back, they score a touchdown, actually on a fourth down pass to John Mackey, and 2-point conversion, they get 8. Then soon after that, get another touchdown. They go up 15-14. Now they get the ball with 40 seconds left, and dumbfoundedly aren't able to kill the clock, and Notre Dame has no timeouts left. So twice during that series, Syracuse ran out of bounds with the ball. Even the great Ernie Davis inexplicably ran out of bounds, and the clock stopped twice for Notre Dame. So Notre Dame gets the ball back with 14 seconds. They have to go 20 yards just to get this 56-yard field goal attempt, which really, I mean, who's kicking 56-yard field goals in 1961? Well, there's only 3 seconds on the clock, so Zuckerberg figures this is our only chance, sends Prokowski out, and the kick is miserable, wide right, doesn't even reach the goalpost, just barely makes it to the end zone. But there's a roughing the passer or roughing the holder call against Syracuse. The great Walt Sweeney played tight end and defensive end for Syracuse, comes in and blocks him. Okay, the roughing the holder call. And in that day and age, though, it was a little different. Today, there would be no issue. Today, and because of this game and this penalty called at this time, the rules were changed. But at that time, as soon as the ball was kicked, as soon as it left the ground by the kicker, the offensive team became the defensive team. So realistically, you can't have a roughing the holder call because he's on defense now. He can't get roughed, all right? But the referee, long after the celebration has mounted for Syracuse, thinking they've won the game, Notre Dame's missed the kick, they're going to the Orange Bowl, the head referee calls a penalty and makes this roughing the holder call. They get together and they say they award Notre Dame 15 yards and another try with no time on the clock, which is the way it would go today, right? And Prokowski makes the field goal, and Notre Dame storms the field with what they expect is a win. Syracuse is so upset by the controversy going on here that they appeal to the NCAA. Father Hesburgh says his school will stand with whatever the NCAA rules. I think the NCAA waited to announce their ruling on the same day that Ernie Davis wins the Heisman Trophy for Syracuse, so that maybe they're not quite as upset. But their ruling is that Notre Dame had beaten Syracuse on an illegal play, right? And so they could not change the result. Basically, they left it in the hands of the official, and he made that call, and that call is going to stay. So the game stayed as called on game day itself. A couple months later, at NCAA meetings, at rule meetings, they changed the rule as it stands today. Now, ironically, the Liberty Bowl extends an invitation to Syracuse and to Notre Dame. They want to get this game played again, but of course, that's during the time when Notre Dame had a policy of not going to bowl games, so they didn't get their revenge in that particular year. So you got to feel that anybody with a little historical knowledge on Syracuse's behalf is going to point this out anytime they get a chance, that Notre Dame has a win that they didn't deserve back in 1961. A couple other things, or at least one other thing in regard to news notes and nuggets. I was curious, like, where did the Orangemen and Orange come from? So from the 1950s till 2004, the teams were known as the Orangemen, and then subsequently Orange Women as well. It wasn't always that way. They started out as the Orange, and that's because they had an historical affinity with the colony of New York and a House of Orange from Holland. And they thought, hey, orange is a great color. Nobody else is using orange, so we're going to pull it out and use it. And for many years it was, until the nickname Orangemen took root in the 50s. And as so many of these nicknames are, it was attributed to a reporter, Bill Reddy, who wrote for the Post-Standard that Jim Brown saved the Orangemen on a late game-winning tackle. He made a tackle to keep whoever they were playing out of the end zone and saved the game for what Bill Reddy termed the Orangemen, and it stuck, until 2004, when under Nike contract, they were urged to keep things simple. There are too many versions of Orangemen, Orange Women, different colors of orange being used, and it was simplified and came back to the more neutral orange. And then down here you see the mascot, Otto, the orange that is used today. Now, at one time, and it was only a short few years, the Orangemen their mascot was an Indian warrior. In fact, on the 1963 program cover at Syracuse, there's a big shamrock in the background on the cover, and on the front is a Indian warrior plain as day. So it was shortly after that, though, that the Indian was removed, and I guess they were kind of ahead of things in doing that. So some Irish news and nuggets to pay attention to. Our defensive coordinator, Clark Lee, spent 3 years at Syracuse as a linebacker coach. This will be the final regular season game for both schools. As we know, the Wake Forest game has been canceled, and this will be the end for both schools in terms of the regular season. And the season is for Syracuse is at 1-9. They're not going to a bowl game. Notre Dame, number 2 in the AP poll. That's the highest ranking this late in the season since 2012, which of course played in the national championship game. The current winning streak of 15 games is the longest among all FBS teams. A win versus Syracuse would give Ian Book a perfect record at home in his career. And not too many that can say that. At 23 home games, this sets a modern era record for wins, the winning streak. The longest at Notre Dame is 28 by Frank Leahy's teams from 1942 to 1950. And evidently that's not considered the modern era. Tickets for the Syracuse game were made available to Notre Dame faculty and staff only. As we know, students are on break and will be on break until I believe February. So I don't know how many students will be on hand or if they'll even be allowed into the game. I'm hoping and praying that a lot of faculty and staff seize this opportunity and want to go to the game so that they can cheer on the seniors and get them out in style. They deserve that. So if you haven't, and you're a serious Notre Dame football follower, or not even a serious Notre Dame football follower as a faculty or staff member, please look into getting a ticket for tomorrow's game. But if you don't, get your seat already for the ACC championship game, and that'll be in your seat at home in front of the TV. Remember, this will be the first conference championship game in football ever. So it would behoove yourself to make sure you're set the time aside to watch that game in 2 weeks. All right, let's look at the Orange defense. So they are a 3-3-5 defensive setup. They hired Tony White was hired from Arizona State for the specific reason. Coach Dino Babers wanted to get a 3-3-5 concept going for his team, figuring that this is the modern defense to play today. So this is the 3-3-5. Notre Dame played the 3-3-5 maybe for the first time against Iowa State a year ago in the bowl game. But they've seen it other times, maybe not necessarily a 3-3-5 per se, but because it's a 3-man front with a lot of variability. It's going to be similar to what they saw on occasion from Clemson, from Louisville, from North Carolina, from South Florida, all who employed odd fronts at times. Okay, so it's not going to be maybe not have the oddity for Notre Dame that Syracuse would like. At least I don't think. But it is unpredictable, has a lot of unpredictability because there's a lot of different variations that can be used, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. The players must take on multiple assignments. They have to be trained, and the tough thing for Syracuse this year and Tony White coming in is they only had 3 days of spring football, and that just gave them really August to get this defense down and put it to work. So at least they're finally getting to know the defense. There's a lot of flexibility on the defense. It's really created to make quarterbacks flustered and to give the variability of covering all these different spread offenses. The 3-3-5 is typically a one-gap defense. Now, again, I'm going to show you some of their fronts in a minute, but what does that mean, one-gap defense? So they only have 3 down line, remember. They're going to line up head across, not favoring one side or the other of the lineman across. So the center and the 2 tackles are going to have a down defensive lineman right on their head. But that down defensive lineman is going to have a 3-way go. He can go straight ahead and play both gaps. He can go to his right on an angle or to his left on an angle. So that offensive lineman doesn't know he's going right or left when the ball is snapped. So it leaves that offensive lineman in a little bit of a quandary, okay, which is why offenses have gone to zone blocking, right? Now, though, when you go, he doesn't just have a choice to go right or left. It has to be correlated and timed up across the front so that all three guys are doing the same thing. Or if one guy's going a different way, there's a linebacker to make up for that as well. So that's what we mean by a one-gap defense. They are going to a gap and penetrating. Linebackers are often in this defense stacked right behind those three, so the three linebackers. They do employ 5 defensive backs. That gives them the versatility for a lot of different coverages and to cover those spread offensive sets, which I mentioned. Linebackers in this defense have had a lot of success getting the quarterbacks and coming up with turnovers. Syracuse has the only 2 linebackers in the nation with multiple interceptions, multiple forced fumbles, and multiple fumble recoveries. So 2 guys both have multiples in those areas. This defense, although not playing real well, have a lot of young guys playing, is 3rd in the AC in allowing points in the red zone. So they have a 79% of the time offenses are scoring points, period, field goal or a touchdown in the red zone. So that's 20% of the time they're not scoring. That's pretty good. And the Orange have yielded a TD on just 25 of those 48 trips into the red zone. 10 freshmen appeared on last week's depth chart. I can't tell you how many injuries that Syracuse has had. So they're playing a lot of freshmen. They're very, very young defensively. Here's what they look like in the ACC. So total defense, they're ranked 12th. They're not at the bottom in any one category, but they're not real high either. So total defense, they're giving up 455 yards a game, 32 points a game, puts them 11th. Their rush defense, giving up 202 yards a game, has them at 15th. That is at the bottom. Okay, pass defense, though, is 8th at 252. Here's where they're impressive. They are number 1 in the nation, which obviously that makes them number 1 in the conference, with takeaways. They have taken away 22 either interceptions or fumbles, and it's about half and half. I think it's 11 of one and 10 of the other. And they've had 9 sacks. So you can see what they're trying to do with that 3-3-5. They are trying to be disruptive. They are trying to cause the chaos. Here's some guys to watch. So Michael Jones, he's one of those linebackers that's been ultra successful coming up with turnovers. He's 6'1", 230, wears the number 13, has 4 interceptions, okay? That's one of the top in the nation for linebackers. He has 6 takeaways altogether in 220. He leads all Syracuse players with 68 tackles. Playing quarterback is a redshirt freshman by the name of Garrett Williams. He's led the team in tackles 3 times in 3 different games. Has 2 interceptions on the season. One of those interceptions was against Trevor Lawrence for Clemson, which he took back for a touchdown. So he is a guy to keep your eye on too, and that's 13 and 14 on the Syracuse defense. So here's a look at the front, okay? And I'm just going to show you the fronts here. So here's a 3-3-5 setup, and with the 3 linemen. So lineman 1, lineman 2, lineman 3, linebackers 3, and they are stacked, right? This guy could be a little tighter, but they can also move to these up positions where it looks a lot of the times like a 5-man front. You're going to see that. And in this case, the linemen are what we call pinching. They're lining up, head up, and going to the inside gap on both sides. So these backers walked up to the defensive end positions or outside linebacker. They are also taking a gap that puts this nose tackle in what we call a 2-gap in it. So he's going to come straight ahead, okay, and he's going to play both A gaps, okay. So he's 2-gapping it. Everybody else is single gapping it, going to an inside gap. Now, I have a bunch of fronts here for you to look at. I don't expect you to have these memorized, but this is where they have so much versatility if they can be successful in everybody playing their responsibility. So we have some simple 4-man rushes. Everybody's on an angle. You have a backer filling and a backer that has to be responsible for this A gap because that tackle is going away. Same thing here. You have a tackle going away. gaps are being filled. This is a 5-man pressure. Another 5-man, 6-man, this 5-man pressure, 4-man pressure, 5-man pressure, 4-man pressure, okay? All start out basically looking the same. Now we have little creeping up of either a linebacker or a safety to the outside. These become 6-man pressures here, 6-man pressure, 6-man pressure, 6-man pressure, and then down here you get the 7-man pressures. So they're loading up that box a little bit. They're coming after quarterbacks. This is a lot of what you will see in the red zone. Just all-out blitzes are going to try to cover tight man-to-man, try to give that quarterback a second maybe to make up his mind and throw the ball. And they've been successful. If they've been successful nowhere else on the field, they've been successful in the red zone. And a lot of the times it's because they're causing a turnover here, okay? So look for these 7-man pressures down here when they're in the red zone especially, okay? Sometimes on a 3rd and long call, they'd like to get you to 3rd and long. I think the running game becomes important again with Notre Dame. The best way to beat a blitzing team is to run the ball at them, okay? Well, we'll talk more about that in keys to the game. So go Irish, beat the Orange, senior day at Notre Dame. I want to thank everybody who's watching there for taking a look at what Bill and I have to offer on these home games. We hope to be with you for the conference championship game as well, but without a Wake game next week, this will be our final in-season game. So it's been a blast for us, and I want to thank you. And at this point, I want to turn it over to Bill Lewis to talk about the Syracuse offense.
Thanks, Mike and Bill. And as always, a warm welcome to Chalk Talk. If you've been with us in the past, you know that I'm a great believer when talking about an offensive team. I'm a great believer that stats tell a story, statistics tell a story. But as I started to study the Syracuse offense, I found that there was a story behind the story. And let me go over that quickly with you. Prior to the start of the season, back in August, Syracuse's top 2 returning running backs opted out of the entire season to prepare for the National Football League draft. So they're left with their 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th running backs to start the season. Their starting returning quarterback, Tommy DeVito, in the 4th game of the season, he gets an injury and he is lost for the entire season. Now, he's coming off of a year where he threw for 2,400 yards and 19 touchdowns. So he's a solid returning quarterback, and they lose him for the whole year. His replacement, Rex Culpepper, now becomes the starting quarterback, but he's in and out of the lineup because of some very serious personal health issues. All right. Now, a quarterback has to be protected by an offensive line of scrimmage. Their interior offensive line, from tackle to tackle, 2 tackles, 2 guards, center, not one time during their 10 games through the season did they have the same 5 guys starting on the offensive line of scrimmage. So there was always inconsistency on the way they were able to block their running game and protect their quarterback. All right, now we go to their new starting quarterback, and he had been a backup along with Culpepper. He takes over as the starting quarterback. His first start was in game number 9. Then in the 10th game of the season, toward the end of the game, he gets a concussion. He's in concussion protocol and doesn't even dress for their game last Saturday against North Carolina State. And there is still no word out of Syracuse as to what his status will be for Saturday's game against Notre Dame. Their starting running back, who replaced this group up here in the 4th quarter of their last game against North Carolina State, he goes out with an injury, does not come back the rest of the game. And again, there is no word as to whether he'll be available to start this coming Saturday. All right, so now let's go and see the rest of the stat story. I put together just very quickly some key team stats. And with the exception of their passing yardage, which is still very low, in all of these other categories, they are in the bottom 5 of 128 FBS schools. All right. And so it just, as you look at these numbers, only scoring 17 points a game, this number really concerns you. They average just 78 yards a game rushing. And in order to have a balanced offense, that has to be tremendously higher. Their total offense, 250, is like second or third lowest in the entire country. Third downs, they only convert 1 out of 4. So they're 3 downs and out, 75% of the game. All right. As you look at their sack totals, 37 sacks. So they've had trouble protecting their quarterback. But that goes back to all of the different combinations they've had on their offensive line of scrimmage. And then in the red zone, they've been in there 20 times and they've scored only 8 of the 20 times they're in the end zone. The number here that really jumps out is if you go over here, their opponents have been in the red zone 48 times compared to their 20 times. So they haven't been down there threatening to score very often. Now let's go and just take a quick look at some of their running statistics. Tucker, number 34, has been the starter. He's the one that got injured now last week. We don't know his status. So he's the guy that, as you look at the number of carries, he is far ahead of anyone else. He's the only guy to score a rushing touchdown, and his 4.6 yards per carry is good. It's not great, but it's good. But everybody else, now this wide receiver, number 4, and I'll talk more about him as a receiver, he's a real threat. He's run 7 jet sweeps and averaged 11.4. We might see a few more jet sweeps this week, but the rest of their average per carry is ridiculously low. The rest of their running backs, and then as you look at their quarterback stats, you'll see DeVito, before he got hurt, his carries were high because he was keeping the quarterback part of the zone read option. Since he gets hurt, they don't want their quarterbacks to be running the ball. So they've taken, and I'll talk about this later, they've taken the quarterback keep out of their zone read options. So these numbers are very low. And of course, you see that their yards per carry are low. So they're having a hard time getting any kind of consistency out of their running game. Now, when we go to their quarterbacks, these are the 3 quarterbacks that have been on the field. There's a possibility if Morgan is not able to play this week that we might see a new quarterback who hasn't taken a single snap this season. But as you look at these numbers, your 2 returning quarterbacks, their percentage of completions is not real good. You like that to be in this high 60% thing. But what really concerns me is the touchdown to interception ratio. They have thrown 14 touchdowns this year, and they've had 11 balls intercepted. That puts their defense then on the field in a lot of bad situations, and they've not gotten the kind of production they want out of their passing game. The one bright spot on offense is their pass receiving game. If they were able to throw the ball more without having problems with sacks and so forth, but they're basically an 11 personnel group, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. These are their 3 receivers. Number 3 has the most catches, but number 4, you look at his yards per catch, 17.2 and 4 touchdowns. Number 3 with the 50 catches and 13.3. These numbers are outstanding. And these 2 have 9 touchdowns between them. Their running backs, they don't have the ball thrown much to their running backs. As I brought their tight ends down here again, not a lot of throws to their tight end, but they've done a good job of using the tight end in the red zone on the goal line. They have 4 touchdowns here. So the one obvious strength of their offense are these 3 guys right here. If they can get the quarterback protected and get the ball to them, they could create some problems with their passing game. Now let's get to the real issue of the X's and O's in their offense. All right, you've seen the story behind the stats. And before I get to showing you some of the things that I expect the offense to actually do from an X's and O's standpoint, I want to make a comment that in all of the games that I've watched of this football team play, they play hard every single snap of every game. And that is a tribute to every young man who's on that football team. And that's a tribute to their head football coach, Dino Babers, his entire staff, and everyone else that supports that program. There's an attitude among this whole group that they're going to play as hard as they can every game and let the final score take care of itself. They're a young team. You saw all of the situations they fought through. Don't be surprised if this team comes in and do Saturday what they did last Saturday against NC State. They had a chance to win the game on the final snap of the game. All right, so let's now take a look at some of the things we might expect from their offense. The first thing is they make use of the tight end H position. All right, they've got 3 guys that are going to rotate in and out. Their base personnel group is 11 personnel. So they're going to have 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. Their tight end, though, moves around their various formations. 3 of them, 89, 87, were their tight ends through their first 9 games. I'm watching the game against North Carolina State, and number 5 appears as a tight end. And I just learned recently that he came to Syracuse as a linebacker, fullback type of guy. And that's where he was his first 3 years. They go into camp and they start to have problems at their offensive line, the injuries I talked about. He says, Coach, put me in. He has played every position except center. He's played left guard, right guard, left tackle, right tackle, wearing number 65. Last week, I see number 5 on the field. They don't have a 5 even on their roster, but that's him. He's 6 foot, he's 280 pounds. And when they put him at these spots, they've got somebody that knows how to go after you and block. And he did some of that real good against NC State. But what I want to mention now is you're going to see the tight end move around. All right. He could be on the line of scrimmage. He could be right off the line of scrimmage in a normal alignment. He could then go and be in one of these wide receiver positions. All right. And then also in a position that you put him back is almost like he's on the same spot as the running back. And when they have him there, and I'm going to show you in these plays, he's now got a real good angle to work across and become involved in blocking this side of the field. Also, you're going to see the quarterback in the middle here with the running back off to his side in the regular shotgun. The running back will be back here in what we call the pistol. He could also be over on this side where I've got the tight end. And there are a few opportunities where the quarterback is taking snaps under the center. But find the tight end. And then as I show you the plays, you'll see where he can be a real part of leading you to the football. Now they are what we all know is a zone read option, and they like that to be a part of their offense. But I mentioned a few minutes ago that they want to keep their quarterback from being a big running part because they're afraid of getting him injured. So what they're going to do is they're going to run your typical zone situation, and I've shown this to you all season. These offensive linemen are going to come off just like they have them drawn zone play. All right. Quarterback's going to come. He's going to take that ball. He's going to put it in the belly, and he's going to read this defensive end. But regardless of what that defensive end is going to do, they could call a called zone dive handoff. So it doesn't make any difference what he's doing. They're going to hand the ball off. He's going to run the zone dive. When that happens, if they are going to run a called dive play, this tight end H-back is going to be in this position to make sure that end can't come in and tackle that zone dive in the backfield. Now, if they call the option, then he's going to read. All right. If he comes down the line of scrimmage, he's going to pull the ball. But then what he's immediately going to do, he is not going to exercise the quarterback run part of it. He's going to immediately, and they're going to take this wide receiver. This guy's going to come off. This wide receiver is going to come and belly right back here. And if he gets that pull read, he's going to pull it and immediately throw it out here. You've got the tight end now is coming off the block here, and they end up with what amounts to be the pitch part of the offense. He'll block the linebacker. He'll come off and block the corner. All right. Now, if they want to go to the run pass option, they do the same thing that everybody else does. These guys zone block and they make sure they stay on the line of scrimmage so they're not called downfield. Quarterback gets a real good ride. The running back comes over here and becomes a part of it. They can keep the tight end in if they want to get maximum protection, and then they can throw any kind of run off of the zone run fake. They can throw to either these 2 receivers or back here. When they've done that, they've liked to throw quick passes. In other words, it's a quick ride, and this can be a quick hitch. It can be some type of quick slant, can be some type of quick hitch over here, some type of quick slant. So again, zone read without the quarterback running the ball. Now, if they run it Saturday, it's because they've made a decision to just go back and run it as a true zone run. but I don't think they're going to take the chance with their quarterback to do that. Okay, and again, you could see a lot of just called zone handoffs. The other thing they can do with that is they can put your tight end in motion, snap the ball with him here, and then again, just run the zone handoff where he's got nothing to do but follow and try to find a soft spot on the line of scrimmage. Okay, now, you see this week to week. People that run the zone dive have something comes back opposite the flow, all right? And I use that term counter power, all right? Remember, on a power play, to the side that the ball's going to end up, everybody blocks the first man on or inside. So you've got these down blocks here, all right? This is one of the positions now where this tight end moves back into the backfield, all right? Because now the rest of this, you're going to get a kick out. Remember, zone power block down. First man outside the down block gets kicked out. And then there's somebody leading through. And because he's back here as opposed to up here, he's got a much easier path to come up through here and either look to block the first thing that shows from here or here. All right. Quarterback simply, this guy's going to take what I refer to as a kick step. That just allows the timing of these two to get in front. Quarterback takes the ball right here. It's a quick ride. All right. He's handing the ball off and he now is right behind that block up into the hole. They've had great success with it as a way of coming back from the zone handoff and so forth. The other thing they can do is make an RPO out of it. RPO tells the line of scrimmage, don't anybody go and try to block that second level. Everybody stays on the line. All right. I get a quick fake. You still got this guy pulling and he stays on the line of scrimmage. The running back becomes a protector after the fake. And we've got any kind of combination route we want here, or pull the ball off and have some kind of throwback there. This will be a big part. You're going to get zone read stuff. You're going to get counter power off of that, and you're going to get the play action to complement both of them. Now, I go back when I say this is an old-fashioned play, but it's everybody referred to it as a quick trap when I was playing. I remember back in high school, we were a split T, Oklahoma split T option team, but we still ran a quick trap. And the real effective part of a quick trap is how quick it hits. The quarterback takes the ball, he hands it off, and it's just an angle block. Bang, bang. This guard comes, bang, right there. The quarterback turns. It looks like the first start of the zone read. He hands that ball off, and they're getting that shot right up the middle. They've had some success with this play, all right? You see, I've got the guy in motion, all right? They can run their jet sweep, okay? So instead of that, when the ball snapped, if it's a jet sweep, then everybody over here is blocking the jet sweep and they hand that to him, all right? They can run him and just have it be a part of the pull and run their trap, or they can also throw the RPO off of it. They fake the trap, still have this action, but again, these guys staying on the line of scrimmage, fake that quick trap and come off, and again, you've got the wide receivers to run downfield. In this particular case, you've got 4 of them that can be involved in some type of play action. But off of the quick trap or the jet sweep, I mentioned the word level last week as I was talking about North Carolina's passing game. What Syracuse has done is they've incorporated 2 things. Number one, they can go to an empty set. All right, put the 4th wide receiver. I showed you they had 4 wide receivers. Put 4 wide receivers in, keep their tight end in. If they wanted to, they might have a 5th wide receiver to have 5 wides. And you know, if I ask you, what is that personnel grouping? All right, what is a personnel grouping if you've got 1 tight end and 4 wide receivers? Everybody with me? Of 0-1 personnel. All right, you got no running back. You've got 1 tight end, which means you got 4 wide receivers. All right, so what they're going to do is they're going to come out. They could have 3 receivers with a running back here, or take the running back off the field and have an empty set. First thing they're going to do, and disregard these red lines downfield, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to come out and start the game with high percentage passes. All right, so what they can do is, I'll draw it up over here. They can have these guys running quick hitches. All right, over here they can have these guys running quick slants, with even the tight end running a quick slant. High percentage passes, catch and throw. The second thing they want, and this was something they did last week continually against North Carolina State, is they run levels. All right. And let me get back to explaining this if you weren't with me last week. What's going to happen now is you're going to have different levels of receivers starting downfield. Let's take these two inside receivers. As they start downfield and start to work inside, they are asking themselves, is somebody playing me man-to-man and running with me? Somebody playing me man-to-man running with me? Or are these people dropping in a zone? All right, whatever it might be. It might be 5 under 2 deep, 4 under 3 deep. But if I'm being chased, I know now that this guy's also being chased, and he's going to come and try to pick or bump into, or whatever term you offensive guys want. All right, and now here comes this receiver across the field. I mentioned number 4 is a threat. They opened the game, and he had 4 or 5 catches on this route against man coverage and was very successful. Now, if it's long yardage situations, then they've got these people back here running at different levels. Same thing. If somebody's chasing them, they continue to go and try to outrun their coverage. All right. If it's zone coverage, then what they're doing is this guy will come in here and he'll sit down just like up here. If it's not man coverage, this guy will come and sit down in the zone. He'll come and sit down in the zone. All right. This is where you'll get some deep routes trying to find open zones back in this part of the field. Or if it's man-to-man coverage, this guy will come out, since it's man-to-man, try to beat this guy deep, which happened last week. They got a 70-yard pass for a touchdown against NC State. If he sees it's man coverage, he'll take it deep. If he sees it's zone coverage, he'll try to find an area. All right. And I think with the quarterback having problems with the percentage of completions, this is a concept that they could just take, build 2 or 3 simple things to do, come out, not be concerned. They've got enough people that can keep a running back in, take one of the receivers off to make sure they got enough protection. All right. I think we're going to see a lot of this crossing type of routes. All right. Now, quarterback situation. We don't want to run the zone read. All right. So let's go and let's run just what we call the stretch play. All right. There's no read to it. Quarterback, running back gets in the pistol, zone block, just as I have it there. They know how to do that. They've got a chance to get the extra guy here because when you run an outside zone, this end can't catch it. It's too far for him to go. So they just run a simple, what we call stretch handoff, and he's looking for the soft spot. It's a great action to come fake the stretch play, come on out with the wide receiver and the tight end coming off. You have a combination route there. Or, and both these quarterbacks are capable of doing this, fake the stretch play, bootleg back over here. Now you've got your combination routes here. You've got a tight end to run a crossing route here. You've got a deep receiver from the backside. So I expect to see this become a little bit bigger when they have a situation where they don't want that quarterback running option type football. All right. Now, last thing, red zone, goal line. They've done a poor job of scoring a lot of times, but they've got a couple of neat concepts. If they think you're in man coverage, all right, they're going to pick one of these 2 concepts. All right, let's just work one side or the other because these 2 things don't happen at the same time. They're going to put 3 wide receivers together, or they'll put 3 wide receivers, or they could put a tight end in this position here. Let's take this group first. They come in what I call bunch set, where these guys are closely matched. All right, they're anticipating this being man coverage. All right, so what they're going to do is they're going to get a deep post route here, just trying to beat your man. All right, this guy's going to start inside, and when he senses that it's man coverage, he's going to hook up and start back here. And then because of the man situation, what they're going to do is they're going to come off here and try to start this and get this guy picked in man coverage and work up into a soft, empty spot. All right, and they've had success at doing that. And in one of those cases, they had the tight end in this position right here. And that was one of the touchdowns that we saw the tight end run. All right. Now you come over here with the same type of situation. You've got either 3 receivers or 2 and a tight end. All right. Again, if it's zone coverage, these guys are going to come off and run quick slants. If it's zone coverage, then they're going to try to find a spot in between the zone coverage people. If it's man coverage, then they're going to pull their man with him, pull your man with him. Now this guy comes off with kind of a little hesitation. They get a lot of traffic right here. And then he's got to remember his man inside. He's going to break to the corner and this guy's got to break through a lot of traffic to get to him. And they hit the wide receiver, and also they had the tight end in this position once, and he caught the second of his 2 touchdowns. So I expect to see this as they get into the red zone, possibly the goal line. Okay, now let's go back and get back with Mike and with Bill.
Thanks, Bill and Bill. Appreciate your insight as always. Now let's talk about some keys to the game. And Bill Lewis, we're going to start with you. You know, this is obviously no time for a letdown for the Irish. Okay, Bill Lewis, we're not hearing you right now.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that. And Bill Reagan, why don't you jump in here on the second keys to the game? And that's the red zone, where the Irish have been kind of mediocre. And that is one of the things that the Orange do well is red zone defense.
Yeah. This is, look, this defense is not a good defense. They don't tackle well. They struggle with what I call gap integrity. The front seven plays high an awful lot. Their corners against North Carolina State anyway got beat on almost every 50-50 ball that there was. And but inexplicably, they play good defense in the red zone. Part of that comes from being real aggressive, as I pointed out in my presentation. But it's an area where Notre Dame is going to have to focus. I think it's amazing statistic that they have seen opponents 48 times in the red zone and have only allowed 25 touchdowns. That over half the time somebody gets there and is not scoring a touchdown. So this has got to be a place where Notre Dame really bears down and beats them in the red zone.
Okay, Bill Lewis, hopefully we're back with you on audio. Bill, do we have you?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay, let's talk about the Irish maybe getting off to a fast start here.
Okay. Well, the noise tells us that the Irish are heavy favorites. A week ago, the noise told NC State that they were heavy favorites, and that game went to the final play of the game. So I think it's important that our team comes out with the pedal pushed to the ground from play one. Offense, defense, special teams, take control completely of the game so that we don't get in a situation where we're fighting to kind of regain our composure and so forth. Let's just come out, take control of it, and then be able to go home and watch to see if Clemson can go to Blacksburg and win.
Okay, Bill Lewis, we're going to stick with you here for your next key to the game. And, the Irish defense is ranked 4th against the run, and they're going to have to dominate again.
And we saw in the stats that they have a difficult time. Syracuse has a difficult time running the ball, 70 yards a game. So what we have to do is we have to go right from the beginning, because they will come out. They're going to have 2 or 3 plays that they want to try to establish on the ground. We've got to stuff them, make them a one-dimension team so that we know that we can now do all the different things we want with coverages and so forth without worrying about having to be concerned about the run from the first series of the game. Let's stuff the run, make them a one-dimension football team from there.
Sounds good to me. Bill Reagan, I'm really surprised by the stat that you talked about, leading the nation in takeaways. A one-win team, very unusual, but protecting the ball is going to be important. Yes,
yeah, absolutely. Let me go back to Bill's initial point there for just 1 second. I meant to add on to that for a little bit, because I think if they accomplish Bill's original key here, we don't even need these other 5 keys, right? If they come out motivated, the Irish will take care of business. But sometimes in a game where you're favored heavily, you have to find a little something. I used to love Michael Jordan coming out and he'd convince himself to get angry with the other team when they didn't match up to his level of competition. And it might be just something as simple as somebody from the other team wearing his shoes, Michael Jordan shoes, find something to get angry about and take it out on them. So maybe it's just the fact that it's senior day. It doesn't have to be Syracuse themselves, because they really come in as a sad kind of a story, as Bill pointed out, with all the injuries throughout the season. Just be motivated. Yeah, so they are leading the nation in turnovers, takeaways with 22. And I believe they're tied with one other school in doing so. But you got to take care of the rock. That's, as we've talked about all year, if you're going to get upset, you're going to be turning the ball over, and Notre Dame certainly can't afford to do that.
Okay, Bill Lewis, explain this one for us. Sounds like fun, storming the castle.
Before I do that, Mike, let me first of all thank you and Bill and all of the folks who have made this possible. All the people from a technological standpoint. So I don't know if, and the people that watch, I don't know if they know how much I enjoy doing that. I hope it comes across. But again, it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to. I already looked at one or two of Clemson's games since we played them the last time. But it's been a great year. Storm the castle. Up 2 spots above, it says tough stuff to run. Make it a throwing game, and then don't give their quarterbacks time to be able to develop any type of timing in the throws. Let's put the pressure on them as we did to the quarterback at North Carolina a couple weeks ago. Let's just make life miserable for him by not being afraid to play man coverage, come with the pressure. And again, because of some inefficiencies on their line of scrimmage, I think we can have some success with that.
Yeah, here's the key to the game for this Syracuse quarterback. Don't spike it on 4th down. I'm surprised that's not up there. But Bill Reagan, feel special. Is that because it's senior day, or are you talking about special teams?
Well, let's make it both.
All right.
You keep stealing my lines, Mike. I am impressed with Syracuse special teams. And they have a very good kicker, a good punter. They had special teams player of the week last week, and a young man that took one to the house on a kickoff return. They've had other punt and kickoff returns that have been called back because of penalty. So who's to say a referee doesn't miss a holding call or a push in the back, and they get an easy score that way? But they have played, and again, this is credit to Dino Babers. Where they can have an edge might be special teams, and I think Notre Dame just can't afford to do that. And I'd like to see them win the special teams battle, Notre Dame, that is. And if all goes right, I think that we can send these seniors out and make everyone feel special. So that would be the way to do it.
Okay, we do have a few questions from those who are watching, so let's go to those. And the first question, Bill Lewis, I think this one is for you, or Bill Reagan rather, with again a shuffled offensive line. What are you looking for from the ND offensive line amidst all these changes? What are you going to keep your eyes on?
Well, I think
the key is to have consistency, and this is what I looked for last week in the 2 kids that were playing. And evidently Kramer's not going to play this week. He's feeling good, but they're going to save him and not put him in any jeopardy of any stitches coming out or anything. So he's still going to have 2 new guys, and probably Lugg moving in to the center position. So you're going to have another backup playing at guard. And I think Syracuse will test these guys, especially with the amount of stunning and pressures that they give. It's going to be that kind of situations, those passing situations, where I'll be watching those 2 linemen real close.
Coach Lewis, any thoughts on that?
No, I was thinking that from the other line of scrimmage. I think, again, with the problems they've had with all the different people making up that starting 5, that they might take 2 or 3 runs and say, let's just focus on those, try to establish some type of consistency with a play or 2 so that we can give the quarterback then some decent down and distances to be able to continue to make first downs.
Okay, Bill Lewis, we have another question here relating to Notre Dame's multiple tight end formations. As a defensive coordinator, what would you do to try to negate some of those advantages that Tommy Rees is creating with 3 and 4 tight end formations?
Well, I think it goes to loading up the box. When we talk defense, we talk about having 7 or 8 people in the box. One of the things that happens when you play multiple tight ends, you tighten up the formation, allowing you now to get 8 people actively involved in the box, and 8 people then with basic responsibilities of defending the running game. And then you put those 3 guys back behind to handle the deep throws and so forth. But I think that as soon as I see that second tight end go on the field, that third tight end on the field, I'm making sure that I've got the ability to have the people I want on the field to give them an 8-man front.
Okay. Last comment here from the audience. hey, is the NCAA extending your contracts here so that we have more Bill and Bill next year? I got to say, I cannot speak to contract specifics, but they both have eligibility left, and we will be bringing you back next year. And for whatever postseason play the Irish have, you can look forward to seeing Chalk Talk with Bill and Bill. Well, the next time you'll see us, of course, will be Chalk Talk Rewind on Tuesday when we look back at these keys to the game and see how it all played out during the course of the matchup. Until then, for Bill Reagan and Bill Lewis, I'm Mike Sullivan from the Notre Dame Alumni Association. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and go Irish.
Go Irish, everybody. Stay safe.